Do you know the deep reason your heart tightens every time you see their unread message? It's a direct sting into that fear of abandonment you've never dared acknowledge. How many sleepless nights have you spent asking yourself, why do they stay silent? Where did I go wrong? Each time they dodge a simple question, it feels like a panic alarm blaring inside you. I'm not good enough. But in reality, it's not about your worthiness. It's a survival mechanism etched into their mind since childhood. Imagine touching fire without realizing you're burned until the wound is gangrenous. That's how an avoidant partner faces intimacy. They recognize the warmth, but painful memories force them to pull back before they even get a taste of love. And you, craving understanding, are caught in that blaze, wondering how to rescue them without turning yourself into ash. In the next 5 seconds, if you're about to press play, stop and ask yourself, do I truly deserve an honest answer? Because their silence speaks louder than any sweet words. Every time they evade your question, they're admitting, I'm terrified of losing freedom. I'm terrified of being hurt. And you, sitting here now, do you have the courage to hear that blinding truth? Or will you keep believing that love is worth the endless wait? This isn't a battle to seize their heart. It's a quest to find light for your own. Only when you grasp the fire burning within them will you have the strength to choose your path, to keep waiting, or to step away from the destructive blaze. Now is the moment to decide, will you love blindly, or will you rescue yourself? Decoding the avoidant mechanism is the crucial first step toward understanding why your partner isn't intentionally pushing you away, but is instead attempting to protect themselves. Throughout their development from the early days of childhood dependency, their nervous system has learned to perceive closeness as a potential threat, much like an ever-present alarm bell ringing deep within their subconscious. Whenever someone ventures too close, when the neurochemical signals in their brain and body respond instinctually, maintaining distance for survival, neurons associated with anxiety and panic immediately activate, giving them a piercing sensation whenever someone tries to share deep emotions or moments of vulnerability. This withdrawal does not originate from a lack of love or appreciation for you, but from an unspeakable fear of being engulfed and losing the personal space and inner freedom they rely on for safety. Imagine that every time you attempt affection or emotional sharing, they feel as though they're stepping into a psychological inferno, where each loving gesture could ignite the carefully constructed borders they use to shield themselves from past pain. They may have experienced childhood wounds, abandonment, rejection, or simply a lack of consistent comfort, and these memories are etched in their subconscious as feelings of loss and helplessness. Consequently, their brain adapts to self-protect. At the moment intimacy draws near, at the hint of dependency, their reflexive system recoils and isolates, like a spring snapping back when touched by fire. This does not mean they do not crave connection. On the contrary, they harbor a powerful longing to be understood and loved. Yet that longing is perpetually torn between the need for protection and the desire for safety within a relationship. They choose avoidance, not because they lack love, but because they fear the relationship will become a cage where love transforms into shackles and trust becomes chains. Each step closer, every question about the future, every declaration of unconditional affection can trigger a cascade of responses. An accelerated heartbeat, rapid breathing, a disorienting inner turmoil. In that moment, they cannot discern genuine love from danger. To them, safety always comes first. From a psychological standpoint, we recognize that avoidant behavior is not a conscious choice, but the result of a survival mechanism programmed long ago. Delving deeper, this is a reaction of the autonomic nervous system, where the amygdala, the brain's emotional processing center, constantly signals threat when the relationship reaches a level of closeness that forces them to confront fears of dependency and vulnerability. They may employ delaying tactics, evasive dialogue, or even turn the tables by accusing you of being too needy, as an unconscious attempt to reassure themselves. I can always retreat if emotions become too overwhelming. But in reality, these are signals of an open wound, one that calls not for pressure but for a soothing remedy, patience, respect for boundaries, and the capacity to maintain trust even when they pull away in silence. When you recognize that this recoil is fear cloaked in the guise of coldness, you cease interpreting every avoidance as a personal rejection and instead see it as a plea. Please, understand me, but do not frighten me further. This recognition is the starting point for rebuilding trust, bit by bit, until their nervous system learns that closeness does not always equate to danger, and that love can indeed be the ultimate sanctuary. After decoding the avoidant mechanism, understanding that their withdrawal is not a conscious rejection, but a survival system embedded in their subconscious, we must move on to the next chapter, uncovering the power of the right question. A question asked at the wrong time or in the wrong way is like a trap that keeps you and your partner spinning in a cycle of empty promises or evasions. You ask, "Do you love me?" and receive merely a yes, without any proof. You ask, "Why are you silent?" only to be met with more silence or a superficial excuse. You ask too much. All these questions, however sincere, will never penetrate the truth hidden within them. In contrast, the right question is not necessarily intended for a straightforward answer, but to illuminate the foundation of the relationship and force the avoidant partner to reveal their internal contradictions. Only questions deep enough to trigger an internal reflex can crack their rational armor, exposing the invisible threads that bind freedom and attachment, revealing the old wound between desire and fear. For example, rather than asking, "Are we going out this weekend?" you might ask, "When I reach out for closeness, what goes through your mind?" This question doesn't demand a clear commitment, but compels them to react. "I feel stressed." "I fear losing personal space." Or simply, "I'm not ready." That is real data, not empty rhetoric. Imagine you're inspecting the foundation of a building. No one cares about the paint or the chandelier if the base isn't solid. The right question is the hammer test for the foundation, striking directly at the base to see whether the structure will hold. For the avoidant, this question serves as a beam of light into the cave where they hide behind layers of sensory barriers. You will see them recoil, not because they want to avoid you, but because they cannot rationalize their deepest fears. They might dodge or resort to silence, but that very reaction is your answer. Their stunned silence reveals the conflict between their need for independence and their longing for intimacy. The right question not only uncovers how they feel, but also exposes what the relationship truly rests upon and whether it is safe enough for you to continue building. Even if no clear reply follows, the silence, the evasion, or the hesitancy will reveal the truth, that this foundation is built on fear, not trust. Once you master how to ask the right question, you are no longer blindly waiting for empty promises. You become the one holding the compass that determines your direction, moving toward genuine understanding or stepping back to protect your heart. And the very moment you dare to ask a sufficiently deep question, you grant yourself the greatest power, the power to choose based on truth rather than on distant potential. Beginning with an understanding of the avoidant mechanism and recognizing the latent power of the right questions, not merely to elicit answers, but to illuminate the very foundation of a relationship, we now turn to explore the 4 questions. An avoidant partner simply cannot answer questions that strike at their deepest fears. The first question, "How do you truly feel about us?" unconditionally, demands the disclosure of their innermost emotions, which they equate with danger. In an avoidant psyche, uttering unconditional sentiments is tantamount to dismantling their protective barriers, and when they cannot distinguish safety from threat, their hearts instinctively contract, rendering them speechless even if, deep inside, they feel genuine affection for you. Next, the second question, "Where do you see us 1 year from now?" directly confronts their fear of commitment and loss of control over the future. For an avoidant, the future is not a promise, but a time trap where every joyful memory carries the risk of entrapment, compelling them to cling to absolute freedom in the present and to shy away from long-term plans or shared visions. When asked to paint an image of the two of you 365 days hence, they cannot respond with figures or promises. Instead, they instinctively raise shields like, "Why do you need to know?" or "I don't like planning so far ahead to avoid the sensation of relinquishing autonomy." Moving to the third question, "Why do you pull away every time things get close?" You are demanding that they acknowledge and take responsibility for their repetitive avoidance patterns and act requiring them to face themselves, admitting that they alone are the architects of distance and that each step toward intimacy unleashes buried memories of constriction and pain from childhood. They cannot let down their defenses to admit, "I'm afraid you'll become too close," or "I fear losing my personal space," because to do so would expose a wound they have never been willing to confront. Finally, the fourth question, what do you truly want in a partner? And why? Pulls them out of their rational hiding places and compels them to reveal the conflict between their need for freedom and their craving for love. When pressed to list criteria, they must admit to wanting a love on their own terms, affection without obligations, presence without demand. They cannot honestly state that they desire unconditional love without clarifying mutual roles, for that would shatter the carefully constructed facade. They long for love, but dread the burdens of responsibility and commitment. When these four questions are posed with steadfast resolve and patient persistence, it is not just the ensuing silence or evasive words that serve as an answer, but rather that very avoidance which reveals the truth. The relationship you have built is anchored in fear and unspoken, unfair agreements, rather than genuine trust or mutual understanding. And in that moment, you face your choice: to continue waiting for responses that will never come, or to release your hold and seek a relationship where the most critical questions can be answered not necessarily in words, but through authentic, heartfelt action. Building on the analysis of the four questions an avoidant cannot answer, the core message you must grasp is this: their silence or avoidance is not a personal rejection of you, but an automatic defense mechanism deeply embedded in their subconscious. When you ask questions deep enough to expose their fears, they do not choose to deny their feelings, but to block emotional intrusion through silence, evasion, or feigned busyness. This is not a sign that they do not care or love you. Rather, it is the clearest signal that their nervous system is sounding the alarm. This is a potential threat. Maintain distance immediately. Every second they fall silent when you ask, "How do you truly feel about us?" Every time they evade questions about the future, and every instance they shirk responsibility for their pattern of withdrawal, is itself the most honest answer to the questions you desperately seek. Their silence is the only reliable language beyond empty words. It acts as a mirror reflecting the truth of the relationship. It is not the respect for freedom or the maintenance of distance that is at issue, but rather the fear of losing that freedom which governs every choice they make in relation to you. Do not attempt to change them or force them to affirm something, for that will only build greater obstacles. Fear of coercion will trigger an even stronger avoidance response. Instead, accept their silence as an authentic answer. Their quiet is the sign they cannot or are not yet ready to draw closer, and that is vital data for your own self-reflection. Their silence becomes a red warning light, alerting you that the foundation of this relationship is skewed, not built on trust and safety, but on unspoken agreements and continual anxiety. Once you recognize this, you are no longer the one blindly awaiting hollow promises. You become the person with the power to choose, to continue investing your emotions in a murky relationship, or to let go in order to seek a genuine connection, where silence only emerges when there is nothing left to say except mutual understanding and respect. For ultimately, the goal isn't to change your partner into the version you desire, but for you to gain clarity and authenticity about your own worth. You deserve a love that satisfies both the need for closeness and the need for freedom, not just through empty promises, but in every authentic gesture and utterance. And remember, sometimes silence is not the overture to tragedy, but the most emphatic answer that helps you discern true safety from the sweet trap of loneliness. From the vantage point of their silence, you must broaden your perspective and chart a clear course of action. First, practice self-care for your inner world. Journal your emotions each time you face avoidance, identifying your automatic reactions, rising anxiety, sudden hurt, or the urge to escape confrontation. Knowing exactly what you feel prevents you from being swept away by emotion unconsciously and helps you exercise self-control, responding rather than reacting. Second, reaffirm your personal boundaries. You may grant the relationship a chance, but determine your threshold for uncertainty. For example, state clearly that if after a specific period, perhaps 2 weeks or a month, there is still no progress, you will scale back the emotional investment and only wait within certain limits. These boundaries are not weapons of punishment, but shields of self-preservation, preventing you from being caught in the whirlpool of blind hope. Third, cultivate compassion for both yourself and your partner. Understand that they operate from a defense system that is not malicious, but unconscious. When you see them recoil, instead of reacting with anger or disappointment, remind yourself, This isn't their fault, but the fault of an innate spring triggered by fear. Compassion allows you to transform inner pain into understanding and patience, rather than doubt and sadness, and prevents the relationship from becoming a battleground of wins and losses. Next, build an external support network. Share your experiences with close friends, family, or a therapist to gain objective perspectives and effective coping strategies. Distancing yourself from the relationship's pressure is an effective remedy to rejuvenate your energy, avoid psychological isolation, and maintain equilibrium. Finally, develop yourself alongside the relationship. Invest time in pursuing personal passions, learning new skills, joining social activities, or exercising regularly. As you enrich your inner life, the loneliness triggered by their avoidance loses its power to overwhelm you because you possess a solid inner resource. Moreover, this independence sends a powerful message. My worth does not depend on how you reciprocate. This message strengthens both yourself and communicates to the avoidant partner that the relationship must be balanced on mutual grounds, not dependency. The journey ahead is not about pulling them closer by any means, but learning to stand firm on your own 2 feet amid moments of silence. Once you have equipped yourself to identify your emotions, assert boundaries, cultivate compassion, maintain a support network, and pursue personal growth, you will no longer fear the gaps between words, because you know that these silent spaces may be an invitation to look deeply at the nature of the relationship, to determine whether this is a place where love can truly take flight. If the answer is yes, proceed with wise patience. If not, have the courage to let go, for you have gained the clarity to choose a new path, one that is safe, honors your value, and opens the door to genuine, heartfelt love. Building on the core message that silence and avoidance are not personal rejections but defense mechanisms, we must expand our perspective not only to understand but also to stand firm in a relationship with an avoidant partner. First, recognize that every relationship requires a balance between intimacy and freedom, connection and personal space. When one party excessively prioritizes freedom, it's you who needs to adjust boundaries, not to impose heavy responsibilities on them, but to protect your heart from perpetual disappointment. To achieve this, start by asking yourself every time you face silence, do I have the patience to wait? Or is it time for me to seek clearer affirmation? Or am I sacrificing too much for an unclear relationship that may not be worth it? Continually self-questioning helps you see beyond current confusion toward the long-term goal of a safe, transparent relationship. Next, establish your personal rules for boundaries and expectations. Allow some uncertainty, but determine a stopping point if no positive progress occurs. For example, you may decide that if after 3 attempts to ask, "Where do we stand in the future?" you still receive no satisfactory answer, you will initiate a candid conversation to finalize things or consider stepping away to protect your self-worth. Setting clear boundaries is not a weapon of confrontation but a shield of protection, preventing you from being swept away by blind hope. Simultaneously, cultivate compassion not for them to continue disadvantaging you, but for yourself to alleviate emotional burdens and avoid self-blame when they withdraw. You can remind yourself, they are operating from their system. It has nothing to do with my value. Each time you feel hurt, repeat this mantra to transform pain into understanding and patience, rather than doubt and sadness. Equally important is building an external support network, friends, family, or mental health professionals who can offer objective perspectives and replenish your strength, ensuring you don't fall into psychological isolation when the avoidant partner goes silent. By sharing, you release negative energy and receive genuine counsel. Lastly, create a parallel personal growth path alongside the relationship. Learn new skills, pursue passions, maintain your health, and nurture other social connections. As you enrich yourself, you reduce the emptiness that their avoidance unintentionally triggers, and you demonstrate that your self-worth is not contingent on their response. This independence holds the power to break the cycle of belated hope because you actively choose a meaningful life, regardless of the outcome with the avoidant partner. Ultimately, any relationship is a journey of discovering both the other person and yourself. By applying the methods of asking the right questions, establishing intelligent boundaries, maintaining compassion, fostering supportive relationships, and pursuing personal growth in parallel, You not only provide the avoidant relationship with a clear opportunity to evolve or to responsibly let go, but you also ensure that, whatever the ending, you remain grounded, whole, and free in your own journey toward happiness. In conclusion, you've now equipped yourself with 3 powerful lenses: understanding the avoidant mechanism, mastering the art of asking the right questions, and recognizing the 4 questions an avoidant partner cannot answer. You know that their silence isn't a rejection of you, but an alarm for the fear within. You will no longer be lost in empty promises or driven by the urge to change them. Instead, you've learned to set boundaries that honor your worth, cultivate compassion, and build inner resilience. Let each moment of their silence serve as a test of your resolve. Are you still willing to wait in uncertainty, or do you have the courage to let go and seek a transparent, safe connection? This is not a defeat, but a victory of self-respect and self-love. Your next step is to trust yourself. Whatever path this relationship takes, you are now wiser and freer. You deserve a love that both gives and respects personal space. Walk forward with clarity in your heart, and embrace the future with the confidence that when someone is ready to answer the most important questions, true love will emerge through honest words, steadfast actions, and mutual respect.